This program is brought to you by Real Estimate, Australia's #1 property value estimate. Get your real estimate today on realestate.com.au.
Welcome back. There are 3,166 homes scheduled to be auctioned across Australia this week. That's up 20% when compared to the same week last year. New South Wales will hold 1,220 auctions with about 1,000 in Sydney. Victoria will hold 1,347 auctions with virtually all of them in Melbourne. Queensland will hold 292 auctions with about half of them in Brisbane. South Australia will hold 162 auctions with virtually all of them in Adelaide. Western Australia, Tasmania and the Northern Territory will hold 41 auctions between them, and the ACT will hold 104 auctions. Taking a look at the most viewed properties going to auction this weekend, and in New South Wales, top home is number 14 Richmond Close, St John's Park. In Victoria, the top home is 16 Panorama Avenue, Ringwood North. The top property in Queensland is 16 Forest Glen Crescent, Browns Plains. This real estate agent seems to specialise in selling uninhabitable homes. He's dressed as Captain Jack Sparrow. The top property in South Australia is 1247 Harrogate Road, Harrogate. And the top property in the ACT is 15 Flosgregg Street, Watson. And the most viewed property on the REA Group website this week is a bit different. You can't actually live in it. It's a church located in Tasmania, about an hour and a half drive north of Hobart. The address, 52A to 54 Church Street in the town of Ross. This Gothic architectural building was made in 1882, sits on about 7,200 square metres of land. The zoning falls under the community purpose category, so it could become an event venue, an art gallery, or possibly a visitors centre. The entire church is heritage listed, so you can't do much in the way of renovations, but the agents, they're taking offers over $450,000. Joining me now is Paul Ryan from REA Group. Paul, thanks for your time. Seems like there's a lot of properties for sale right now out on the market.
Yes, absolutely. We've got another big weekend coming up. More than 1,000 auctions scheduled in both Sydney and Melbourne. That's followed a number of really strong weekends for auctions in both of those cities. And we're still seeing auction clearance rates hold up despite these much higher auction numbers.
Yeah, so a couple of super Saturdays then for Sydney and Melbourne. What's the outlook looking like for the next couple of weeks as we get closer to Christmas?
So we've got another 4 weekends before Christmas, and the trend so far has been for really strong activity. We've got another 3,100 auctions scheduled next weekend nationally. Really, it looks like there's a lot of vendors out there looking to sell their home before Christmas and get it all done and dusted.
Yeah, just give us a sense of how much stock there is right now on the market compared to maybe the same time last year.
We've seen a market increase in stock. In October, we saw national listings were 15.7% higher than this period last year. So there's a lot more properties coming to market in 2023 than there was in 2022. And that's particularly the case in Sydney and Melbourne, where the number of new listings in October were more than 30% higher than last year. So that's been the big standout, has been the big turnaround in Sydney and Melbourne, both in terms of market activity and in terms of prices this year.
So, Paul, that additional properties coming onto the market for sale over the last 12 months, is that all just due to prices being higher?
Yeah, I think we've seen much stronger seller confidence this year. And the two big factors for that are, as you note, higher prices. We've seen prices increase every month this year. And secondly, we've had relative stability in interest rates. Whereas if you look back to 2022, there was a lot of uncertainty about how high interest rates would go, whether there would be buyers who could weather that higher interest rate activity. And we've seen this year that there are lots of buyers in the market, prices are increasing, and that's brought sellers the confidence they need to bring properties to market.
Okay, so 4 more weeks of selling until Christmas. When does the market then pick up again in the new year?
We tend to see people start to list properties around Australia Day. So we'll see campaigns kick off then. And we'll start to see auctions then, really, just after that Australia Day long weekend. So it's a pause until very late January, early February, a break. And I think everyone will be watching quite closely how the market opens again next year. Will we see another run of interest rate increases? And will we see property prices continue to increase?
Yeah, look, the big news this week was RBA Governor Michelle Bullock speaking about inflation becoming more of a homegrown problem as opposed to supply shocks from overseas. What did you make of those remarks?
I think there's been a lot of interpretation there that the RBA is perhaps a bit more hawkish or a bit more likely to raise interest rates under the new governor. I think what's happened is that the RBA has, as they've noted over the past few months, taken the time to read new additional data to really understand where inflationary pressures are coming from. And as Governor Bullock said, their assessment is that there's a lot more homegrown inflationary pressure. And that really is bad news for interest rates. That means that the RBA needs to suppress demand, and the tool they have for that is higher interest rates. So we may see higher interest rates in December and maybe more likely February.
Well, looking at the ASX rate tracker earlier this week, it was just giving a 2% chance to an interest rate rise in December. But since Governor Bullock spoke, it's now increased to 10%. How likely, though, do you think it is that we might get a cash rate increase in December?
My assessment is we're probably not likely to get a cash rate hike in December, but the likelihood is probably a bit higher than to that 10% that the market's expecting. A lot of market forecasters are expecting more rate rises from here, but not significantly so. So even if we get one more rate hike in February, I don't think that's likely to have a market effect on the really strong buyer demand that we're seeing across the market.
Paul Ryan from REA Group, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks very much.